everybody, and welcome to Fans Cooking Fiction. My name is Yaya, and in honor of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, starring Liu Simu and Awkwafina, which premieres September 3rd, we're going to be making a classic, well-loved Chinese dessert. So let's get started. So today, we're going to be making some deep fried mantou. And in order to have deep fried mantou, we need to make the mantou first. And you can make it easier on yourself and just going to the supermarket and buying some pre-made ones in the frozen section. But today, we're going to be making it from scratch, and it's a relatively easy recipe with very simple ingredients. In a large mixing bowl, you're going to dump in your milk, then your water, and your sugar. Mix until the sugar has dissolved slightly. Mixy, mixy, mix, mixy, mixy, mix. Okay. Then you're gonna throw in 3 out of 4 cups of your flour. So don't dump all of your flour in at once. So we're gonna do most of our flour, and we're gonna mix until it's kind of like a slurry consistency. Okay, so it's kind of a wet goop right now. Scrape the flour off the side of your bowl. Always remember to do that. And of course, I'm using a chopstick because I like using chopsticks, but you can always use a spoon, a spatula, all that fun stuff. So now that it's mixed, we're gonna just dump in our yeast. Just like that. Now that the yeast has been mixed in, you're gonna add in the remaining of your flour. And don't worry, you're just gonna mix it. You don't need to knead it just yet. We're gonna keep on mixing until most of the dry flour has been incorporated in. At this point where you cannot easily mix with your utensil, that's when you scrape it off, you cover it, and let it rest for 5 minutes. Now that 5 minutes is up, you're gonna take off your lid and you're actually gonna start kneading here. And you're gonna knead until it is smooth and that it no longer sticks to the bowl or your hands. And you also want to knead until there's no clumps yet. You just want it smooth. If your dough is too sticky, feel free to dust in more flour as needed. So there is a difference between mantou and bao. Bao basically translate into buns, and these will usually have fillings, whether savory or sweet. While mantou traditionally does not have any fillings, and it's kind of just plain. Think of it like bread. They're basically our traditional Chinese bread. And mantou, while usually enjoyed in the north, basically is well loved throughout all of China. And even though I used milk today in our ingredients, you can actually replace it with water or soy milk for a more vegan-friendly option. Now that we finished kneading in the bowl, you're not going to take it out just yet. You're going to set it aside and cover it again and let it rest for 5 minutes. Now that your dough has been resting for 5 minutes, again, we take off the lid, and this time we can actually take out our dough and onto our working area. Make sure that you dust your working surface with some flour in order that it doesn't stick. I have a plastic wrap over my cutting board just to keep it clean. keep on kneading until it is smooth. But you see how it's not exactly sticking to my hand? That is a good sign. Now that we knead it again on the thing, it's pretty much smooth. There is no clumps of flour or sugar and all that kind of stuff, so this is good. We're just gonna cover it and let it rest again for 5 minutes. If you noticed, we've been letting the dough rest at different stages in 5-minute intervals. For our recipe today, we want a more denser mantou. We don't want it to rise too much. We don't want it too fluffy or too spongy because we're going to be deep frying it later. But if you're just making mantou just to eat, you can let it rise as much as you want. Usually the ones we eat at home are very fluffy and it's very soft and it has a lot of air bubbles in it. While today, we want to minimize the air bubbles as much as possible. Now that another 5 minutes is up, we're going to knead again. So we're going to knead until, again, it is a nice and smooth dough. And don't worry about over kneading because we do want a denser mantou. And the more you knead, the more gluten in the flour it develops, which is a good thing when you want something that is denser. Now that it's well kneaded, we're gonna divide the dough in half because we're making themed mantous today. So set 1/2 aside. So how are we gonna make it Shang-Chi themed? Well, we're gonna add a splash of color and we're gonna make the inside of it ringed. So you're gonna take 1/2 of your dough and we're adding the color red. There's 2 reasons why we're using red. One, Chinese people, we love the color red. It is the color of fortune, it is the color of luck, and it is the color of prosperity. But if you see the trailer, you see that his outfit has red on it, which is why I'm choosing red. And this part does get messy. If you don't want your hands to get dyed a really bright red color, wear a glove. So we're gonna add a little bit, ooh, maybe not a little bit, maybe a lot. Oh my god, it looks like blood! And we're just gonna knead the color in. And then feel free to add more color if the color is too light. I hate these gloves. And a heads up, if you want the color to be completely uniform, it's going to take a lot of kneading. So be mindful of that if you're gonna add color. So this is probably the most uniform of a color that I'm gonna get today. And it's not as red as I wanted to, it's definitely more pink, but I did expect that. You're gonna set it aside, and you're going to roll your dough flat. And you want to roll as much of the air pocket out as you can. And try to make it as rectangular as you can as well. Set it to the side, and you're gonna do the same with the red dough. Flour your working surface on top, bouncy baby, and make it to the roughly around the same shape. Okay, take your white clay, brush on a little bit of water, and you just roll the red dough on top. I kind of want your red dough a little bit smaller than your white if possible. And we're just gonna flatten them together now. Try to make it a rectangle as much as you can, and I know it's a little bit hard. I'm having a hard time myself, but just do your best. Make sure that the white side is down and the red side is up. So what you're gonna do, we're gonna roll. And you wanna roll as tightly as you can. Like, we do not want any air bubbles. And we're gonna roll it until it is a more uniform log. And rolling it also gets out as much of the air bubbles out as possible. Again, remember, we want a denser mantou, not a fluffy one. When it's nice and uniform, separate into even slices. And you want to chop, you don't want to serrate it. And the thing is, we're going to take a little bit off of this side. And I'll show you why we need this little piece later. What you're gonna wanna do next is put your buns into your steamer. And you wanna keep them like a finger's width away from each other because they're gonna rise. Because in my steamer is small, we're gonna put as much as we can. Make sure they're not touching each other either. Okay, and we're gonna cover them and let them rise. How long do we let them rise? It's actually quite simple. Remember that little piece of discarded dough that we took? Drop it in, and when it floats to the surface is when they're done rising. It's as simple as that, and the thing is, it's probably the best way to know how long to let your dough rise. So I'm gonna turn on my stove and it's gonna be a little bit loud. And we're gonna put it on medium. You want to let the mantou steam from cold water. You don't want to put the mantou directly onto hot water. You're gonna want to boil the water and let the mantou sit there because it's going to continue to rise for a little bit. You're gonna wait until it boils, and then you're gonna wait an additional 20 minutes after it has been boiling. And you know it's boiling is when you can see steam coming from the top of the steamer. You see how steam is coming out of the steamer right now? That's how you know that the water is boiling. And you're gonna wanna let it sit for at least another 20 minutes so that the mantou are completely cooked through. And personally, you don't have to use a bamboo steamer. You can actually use a steel steamer, or you can just put a pot of water, put a bowl inside, put a plate on top, and cover it. And whatever you do, no matter how curious like I am, do not lift the lid off the steamer before the cooking is through. That way you make sure that the cooking is completely uniform all the way throughout the mantou. After 20 minutes it's up, do not lift up the lid. You can check if the mantou are cooked by lifting a little and sticking a chopstick through. If it comes out clean, it means that the mantou is all the way cooked. You're gonna turn off the heat, but again, do not open the lid all the way. What you wanna do, you're gonna open it just a little bit so that the steam can filter out completely. So you're gonna leave it like this for at least 5 to 10 minutes. The reason why you don't want to take the lid off is because once you do, the mantou will deflate and it's going to be very ugly and they're not going to be fluffy. This is why we leave it for a little bit and let the steam filter out. Once that is done, then you can take off the lid and then you can take out your mantou. Now that your mantou has finished steaming, if you want, you can technically stop now and you have perfectly good mantou. But we're extra and we're gonna deep fry them. So you're gonna take your oil and you need enough oil to make sure that your mantou is completely submerged. So we're gonna wait for our oil to get hot. And the reason why you want your oil as hot as possible is because you don't want to fry these too long. Again, you fry them too long, it's oily, it's greasy, it's gross. Carefully put your mantou into the hot oil, and they're going to want to float. So make sure that you're constantly flipping them so that they fry evenly. And you're gonna fry them until they're a nice golden brown. Once they're a nice golden brown, turn off the heat, transfer them onto a paper towel in order to soak up the excess oil. Here's that crust. That's when you know that they're gonna be extra crispy. You just wait for them to cool and then you can eat them. And that's it, fried mantou. And you can find this dish throughout all of China and it's very well loved, especially since it usually comes with a side of condensed milk, so it's nice and sweet and crispy, but fluffy on the inside. Let me take some, dip it in. It's so good. It's nice and crispy on the outside, but so soft and fluffy on the inside. And I really recommend that you guys try this recipe. It is so good, and you guys will not regret it. You don't have to be crazy like me and make mantou from scratch. You can buy it pre-made, and it works just as well. And definitely is a lot less work. I think there's like a rule of thumb too, that anything fried is gonna taste good no matter what. I hope that you enjoyed today's video. Are you guys as excited for the new Shang-Chi movie as I am? Oh my gosh, it premieres September 3rd. Please be sure to subscribe to Non-Talk Networks for more amazing videos in the future, as well as liking and commenting on this video. And I'll see you guys next time, okay? 再见啦!